A little boy wandered down the street one sunny afternoon. Suddenly, he came face to face with a massive dog. Fear gripped him as the dog's towering figure loomed over him. His heart raced, and in a desperate attempt to protect himself, he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Get out, you stupid dog!" But what happened next was something no one could have predicted. This boy, Sasha, was just 5 years old. Strangely enough, he hadn't always been afraid of dogs. In fact, they used to be his greatest love. From the time he was just 2 years old, Sasha had adored dogs. He loved them so much that he often pretended to be one, crawling on all fours, barking, and wagging an imaginary tail as he ran around the house. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and something happened that turned his love for dogs into a fear he couldn't shake. That obsession with dogs, though, never fully faded. It eventually led to him getting his very own dog. Not a tiny, playful puppy as you might expect, but a giant, majestic Newfoundlander. The dog had belonged to Sasha's grandmother, but she could no longer care for it. Sasha's parents, though hesitant, decided to adopt the enormous dog. They worried if such a large animal would adjust to their home. But their doubts vanished the moment the dog walked through their door. It was as if the dog had always been part of their family. Gentle and calm, she quickly bonded with Sasha. They named her Laura, and from the very first day, she became Sasha's loyal companion. Laura followed Sasha everywhere, patiently waiting for him when he got distracted by his toys or little boy adventures. Over time, their bond grew unbreakable. They spent quiet afternoons sharing snacks and making memories. Sasha even begged his mother to let him take Laura to kindergarten, but the answer was always no. He would watch the clock anxiously, counting down the hours until he could rush home to be with his best friend again. To Sasha, Laura was everything. She wasn't just a dog. She was family. But on Sasha's 4th birthday, something terrible happened. Something that would change their lives forever. It started as an ordinary day. Sasha and his parents took Laura for a walk in the countryside. The vast fields, dense forests, and shimmering lake created the perfect backdrop for their outing. But then, out of nowhere, a loud bang pierced the air. The sound of a car tire exploding sent Laura into a panic. Her leash was yanked so hard that Sasha's mother couldn't hold on. Before anyone could react, Laura bolted into the forest, her dark fur vanishing into the thicket. Sasha's heart shattered. He dropped to the ground, tears streaming down his cheeks, calling out Laura's name over and over again. For hours, he refused to leave the spot, clinging to the hope that she would come back. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Sasha's hope began to wither. His parents tried everything to console him, but nothing worked. Sasha blamed himself, convinced that he could have done something to protect Laura. But Sasha wasn't ready to give up entirely. Each day he searched for her. He put up posters all over the city and even asked his classmates at school. Every night, he lay awake, hoping to hear her familiar bark outside his window. Each night, Sasha would wake up, straining his ears for the faint jingle of Laura's bell outside his window. But no matter how hard he wished, the nights stayed silent. Laura didn't return. Then, one day, something happened that changed everything. Sasha was walking home from school, his head low, when he suddenly heard it, a faint bell in the distance. He froze, holding his breath as he listened. The sound grew louder, coming from the direction of the street. Without thinking, Sasha took off running. His heart pounded as he neared the source of the sound. In the dim evening light, he saw a familiar silhouette standing motionless. It was Laura. Sasha couldn't believe his eyes. Tears welled up as he hesitated for a moment, afraid it was a dream. But when Laura wagged her tail, Sasha ran to her and wrapped his arms tightly around her. Laura licked his face, her warmth reassuring him that she was really there. Sasha brought her home, his heart bursting with joy. After 3 long months, his best friend was finally back. When Sasha and Laura walked through the door, his parents stared in disbelief. But their joy was tempered by concern. Laura wasn't the same. She looked thinner, her once glossy coat dull. They had noticed she had lost weight before she disappeared, but now she was frail. Despite everything, Laura was still Laura. She played with Sasha, ate her meals, and wandered the yard as though nothing had changed. But there was something different. Laura often stared out the window, her eyes scanning the distant trees as though searching for something. Then, Sasha's parents began to notice her slipping out of the house multiple times a day. The backyard door, which she had learned to open, became her secret escape route. Sasha was heartbroken, fearing that Laura might leave them again. But every time she disappeared, she returned a few hours later, her eyes distant but calm. At first, Sasha's parents thought she might be exploring the bushes at the edge of their sprawling garden. It wasn't until much later that they realized Laura had been venturing further, toward the forest, the place she had called home during those 3 lonely months. As the months passed, Laura's secret trips became a normal part of their lives. They stopped worrying, trusting that she would always come back. But time doesn't stop, and neither did Laura's age. At 11 years old, Laura's health began to decline. Her once energetic spirit dimmed, and the day finally came when Laura took her last breath. The family was devastated. For Sasha, it was more than just losing a pet. It was like losing a piece of his heart. Sasha spent hours in the garden, sitting at Laura's favorite spot. Days turned into weeks, and he refused to play or smile. His parents tried to comfort him, but they knew that nothing could fill the void Laura had left behind. One day, Sasha finally spoke. His voice was heavy with sadness as he said, "Mom, Dad, I don't want a dog anymore. They love you so much, but then they leave you all alone." His parents' hearts broke at his words, knowing the pain their little boy carried. "And even when they come back," Sasha said, his voice trembling, "they leave you again." It was heartbreaking for his parents to hear such words from their little boy. They did their best to comfort him, hoping time would heal his wounds. And slowly it did. Over the next few weeks, Sasha began to return to his old self. He played with his toys again, kicking his ball through the garden and laughing like before. His parents were relieved to see him smile, even if the pain of losing Laura lingered in his heart. But just when they thought life had settled, something extraordinary happened. One quiet afternoon, Sasha was playing alone in front of the house. He thought he was completely alone, unaware of 2 watery, round eyes watching him from the shadows. As he kicked his ball, it bounced off a nearby fence and rolled into the street. Sasha ran after it, but as he reached for the ball, he heard a soft thud behind him. Turning around, he froze. Standing there was the biggest dog he had ever seen. Larger than Laura but eerily similar in appearance. Couldn't be Laura. That was impossible. Sasha's confusion quickly turned into fear. He clenched his fists, feeling anger and sadness bubble to the surface. "Get out, you stupid dog," he yelled, his voice cracking with emotion. All the pain of losing Laura poured out of him in that single moment. But the dog didn't flinch. To Sasha's surprise, the dog took a step back and calmly sat down. It didn't bark, growl, or run away. Instead, it sat still, as if waiting for Sasha to make the next move. Sasha's heart raced. He stepped back cautiously, inching toward the house, his eyes never leaving the mysterious dog. Just as he reached the door, something unexpected happened. The dog turned around and lowered its head, as though inviting Sasha to pet him. It was almost as if the dog already knew him. Gathering his courage, Sasha slowly approached the animal. "Hey there, buddy," he whispered. "Are you lost?" To his astonishment, the dog tilted its head, almost as if it understood. Sasha stepped closer, and before he could say another word, the dog gently licked his face. That's when Sasha noticed it. The dog's eyes had the same watery, round quality as Laura's. His heart leapt with hope. Could it really be her? Sasha closed his eyes, convincing himself it wasn't possible. When he opened them again, the dog was still there, watching him with a calm gaze. He stretched out his hand, trembling, and gently touched the dog's head. The dog closed its eyes and leaned into Sasha's hand, just like Laura used to. At that moment, Sasha's heart told him what his mind couldn't believe. Laura had come back to him. Sasha burst into tears, hugging the dog tightly. "Laura," he whispered, his voice trembling with joy, Even though part of him knew it wasn't really her, he held on to the thought that she had returned in some miraculous way. The dog wagged its tail and licked Sasha's face, matching his excitement. For Sasha, it felt like a dream come true. His parents stood at the door, watching the scene in stunned silence. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The dog looked so much like Laura that it was hard to breathe. While Sasha played joyfully with the dog, his parents felt a mix of emotions. Relief that their son was happy, but confusion about the dog's mysterious origins. Who was this dog? Where had it come from? And why did it seem so familiar to their son? The dog stayed with the family for the week, and Sasha insisted that Laura had returned to be part of their family again. He told anyone who asked how Laura had found him in the forest. But deep down, his parents knew this couldn't be true. They decided to search for answers. They posted ads around the neighborhood, hoping to find the dog's owner. It was a painful decision, knowing it might crush Sasha's hope, but they felt it was the right thing to do. Days passed, and no one came forward to claim the dog. The family began to accept that the dog might not belong to anyone. Still, questions lingered. Why had the dog come to Sasha? Why did it resemble Laura so closely? Determined to uncover the truth, they took the dog to the vet. The vet examined the dog and took a blood sample for testing. As he studied the results, his expression grew puzzled. "What's wrong, doctor?" Sasha's mother asked nervously. The vet hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't know how to explain this," he said finally. "This dog's DNA is almost identical to Laura's. The similarity is extraordinary." The family was stunned. The vet promised to run more tests and share the results in a few days. On the drive home, Sasha sat quietly in the back seat, his thoughts swirling. Deep down, he began to accept what his heart had resisted. It couldn't really be Laura. Yet, as they pulled into the driveway, Sasha smiled and hugged the dog tightly. "Even if you're not Laura," he said softly, "you're my new friend now." His parents exchanged relieved smiles, seeing their son's resilience. Whatever the truth about the dog, one thing was certain. Sasha was happy. The next day, Sasha and his family made a brave decision. They would return to the forest. It was a place they had avoided ever since Laura disappeared, a place filled with painful memories. But Sasha felt an unshakable pull to go back, and the dog seemed to share his determination. As they walked, the dog tugged on the leash, not to escape, but as if leading them somewhere important. After nearly an hour of wandering through the dense woods, they came upon an old tree with a large cave beneath its roots. Inside the cave, they found an improvised bed made of twigs, leaves, and hay. It was clear that an animal had once lived there, crafting this space into a home. Sasha knelt down, gently touching the makeshift bedding. This could be where Laura lived," he whispered. His voice was filled with wonder and a touch of sadness. His parents exchanged uncertain glances. The idea seemed far-fetched, yet possible. But if it were true, one question lingered. How did this new dog know about the cave? Before they could ponder further, Sasha's mother's phone buzzed in her pocket. It was the vet. "You're not going to believe this," the vet said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "The DNA test results are in. This new dog's DNA is 50% identical to Laura's. In other words, this dog is her direct descendant." The news left the family speechless. It turned out that Laura, during her time away, had been pregnant. Alone in the forest, she had given birth to a pup. This pup, now a young dog, had survived on its own in the wild. And in some miraculous twist of fate, it had found its way to Sasha, just as Laura had found her way to him years ago. Tears streamed down Sasha's face as he hugged the dog tightly. Smiling, he whispered, "Now you're really part of our family." From that day on, Sasha and the dog, whom he lovingly named Laura Jr., were inseparable. Laura Jr. had inherited her mother's gentle nature. As though she instinctively knew Sasha was someone special, she followed him everywhere, always ready to play or comfort him. "That's fate," Sasha's mother said with a smile one day, watching her son and the dog together. Over the years, Sasha and Laura Jr. grew up side by side. They shared countless adventures in the forest, explored the garden together, and formed a bond that was as unbreakable as it was beautiful. Laura Jr. grew even larger than her mother, her imposing frame matched by her bravery and loyalty. Through every stage of Sasha's life, she was there, steadfast and true. To Sasha, it felt as though Laura had never truly left. A piece of her spirit had lived on in Laura Jr., allowing her love to endure. Sasha's parents often marveled at the bond between their son and the dog. "We never believed in reincarnation before," his father joked one day, "but now, maybe we do." Though they knew Laura Jr. wasn't Laura, they also knew she was unique in her own way. She had her mother's soulfulness but her own personality, and they cherished every moment with her. For Sasha, the fear of losing another beloved friend began to fade. Instead, he focused on the joy Laura Jr. brought to his life. He had learned a powerful lesson. Dogs have an extraordinary ability to love, to heal, and to enrich a person's life with boundless joy. And Sasha realized something even more profound, that even when everything seems lost, life has a way of surprising you. Sometimes, when you least expect it, something wonderful can happen.